The following is a sponsored episode.
Hi, everyone. Today we are welcoming back to the show two of my favorite people, Krissy and Claire VanBemmelen, founders of K+C Creative and sisters who have lived through every era of online business. If you guys haven't heard their first episode before, we'll link it below in the show notes. It's so helpful. Like, to this day, it came out, I think, half a year ago, and people are still messaging in and finding new ways to optimize their website for conversion because of the conversation that we had with them last time. So go check it out in the show notes. But Krissy and Claire design high converting websites and funnels for coaches, service providers, and course creators based on real-time buyer behavior. This means that their knowledge doesn't come from textbooks or degrees. It comes from working inside actual businesses across multiple industries and niches every single day. This gives them a front row seat to what's actually working right now, not just in their own market or niche, but across the online landscape. And some of their best tips for launching a business you love can be found in Krissy's best-selling book, Sell While You Sleep, which we'll also link below. Krissy and Claire, so glad to have you both back.
Yay, so excited to be here.
So great to be here.
So today we're actually going to it's almost like a continuation of our conversation last time, but with like a slightly different shift in perspective, right? So like last time we talked a lot about optimization and we kind of, introduced SEO, which is search engine optimization, or how people can be found on Google when people search for certain keywords. But today we're going to talk about how the use of ChatGPT and in general AI is changing the way that consumers are finding people, finding brands, finding service providers and coaches, and specifically this new term that I'm completely unfamiliar with, so I'm very excited to learn more, and that's AEO. Before we even get even further into anything else, can you quickly tell us, what is AEO? What does that stand for?
Yeah, it stands for AI Engine Optimization. So just kind of as you would think, the engine optimization is the same as SEO. Instead of search, it's AI.
So essentially, this is like if someone is typing a question into ChatGPT or Claude, AEO is what determines what businesses or resources are recommended to that user. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yep, exactly. And they kind of rank things differently. So search engine optimization is what you're going to when someone's typing into Google and they're looking for something, that is going to be using the algorithm to match keywords and key phrases to get you the best content, right? So if you're looking up how to cross stitch, it's trying to surf the web and all the blog posts and YouTube videos of looking for cross stitch, right? So it's pairing with keywords and phrases. Whereas AEO, just imagine how you use that, which I'm sure a lot of you listening do. You type it in and it's answering you like it's your best friend giving you the answers or a recommendation. And so it's looking at different things to try and put the right information or the right answer in front of you. And I think that's also AEO could also be answer engine optimization, because that's just how AI operates. It wants to give you an answer, not hey, here's the best article or the best business URL link. It really wants to answer your questions. And so it looks for different things. And so our approach to websites or blogging is different if your strategy is, hey, I want to be located in ranking on the Google, ranking on page 1 versus, hey, I want Perplexity or Claude or ChatGPT to recommend my business when someone's searching.
Thank you for explaining that. That makes a whole lot of sense. I like, by the way, Krissy, your definition of AEO, more answer engine optimization. I think that actually is a lot more intuitive and correct for the use case function. So you've kind of explained the differences between the two optimization searches, if you will. But in terms of how AI has changed the way that we are found online, we being, educators, coaches, course creators, or personal brands, when you're thinking about user behavior and how people are searching for things, do you have any insights or data on how many people are now relying on research through, an AI model versus going directly to Google like they used to? How important or pressing is this issue for people who are listening in terms of prioritizing these changes?
Yeah, I have a stat on businesses that now turn to things like Chat GPT to find service providers and things, that 76% of business owners are using Chat GPT.
Wow.
I don't have a stat on like the general public, but I
Right.
know even non-business owners, everyone's starting to use AI. I was just getting my hair done the other day, and a woman, in the chair behind me is talking about how she was using AI to help her find a recipe, right? Or like to come up with a recipe for something. So it's like so many more people are using it. But yeah, out of just business owners, so if business owners are your target audience, 76% are using AI to find service providers, solutions to their problems, like specifically.
Wow. That is actually a lot higher than I was anticipating. So clearly, again, if you're in B2B, like you need to be paying attention. This is a need, not a someday. And so that's really, really fascinating. When someone searches for a solution or a service on something like ChatGPT or Claude, do you know on average, in terms of the answer that AI gives, how many people or solutions they recommend within that answer? Like, is it typically, 3? Is it like, oh, here's one that we would recommend you look at? Just kind of curious what that experience looks like on the other end, so our listeners can better understand, like, what are we competing with? Like, are we trying to make it into, the top 3 answers that they give, or what does that landscape look like?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, I think it depends, but typically I have found that it's like 5 to 7
Okay.
ish. But it's quite different from SEO, where you're competing with these companies that have like 4 million backlinks and trying to get on
Right.
the first page, right? And we can dive into like when you're optimizing for SEO, really what is that looking at? And when you're optimizing for AEO, like how should we be thinking about it? Because it is totally different. So it doesn't mean that you have to be the best out of everyone. It essentially means that AI needs to understand your business the best
I
to
see.
recommend it.
And if we were to look at that parameter, what does that mean? Like, what factors would influence whether AI understands your business versus not?
Yeah, exactly. So with AI, it's not about ranking, it's about being referred. So it's looking at the clarity, the authority, and pattern recognition. So it needs to really understand what your business is, who it's serving, what you do. And it needs to be super clear. And so there's different things that you can do to make sure it has that clarity beyond just the copy on your website, right? Last time we probably talked about clarity over clever when it comes to your copy, but there's things under the surface that you can do to make sure it's really clear. So AI needs to know this is what you do, who it's for. And then authority. So if you have that presence online or working towards building your presence, this is again kind of a long game strategy here, where if AI is like, hey, this person's being mentioned all over the place. They're in this media, this person's talking about them, they've got blogs that are getting put out on their website. And so it wants to know, is this person in an authoritative state? And so if you do have authority online, it's like, okay, one more check in the box for it to say, okay, I think I should recommend this business or this to this person. And then pattern recognition. So it's a robot, it's surfing. And so it's looking for patterns that are the same. And so, we can get more into this, but in terms of like your business profile, kind of what you're saying, who you are, what you do, who you serve, it wants it to be essentially the same everywhere. So your Google business profile, your LinkedIn profile, your social media. If you're very consistent on all of those places, again, it's another signal to them like, hey, this business is not having an identity crisis and they know exactly what they're doing, who they're serving, that signaling to me that I can trust them more to give this person the best answer.
That was such a succinct and great breakdown, Krissy. I'm so impressed because I feel like this is a very complex topic with a lot of nuance. Like you said, it's not just like a cut and dry A equals B, right? Plug in, plug out. And so thank you for kind of walking us through the different factors that are being considered with AEO. Claire, I know last time when you were on the podcast and we were talking about like optimizing websites overall from both design and copy perspective, you had a lot to share about, the subtle ways that design influences us as buyers and how we engage with the website. With AEO being so new, I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on like, are we at a place yet where design influences what AI recommends? Or do you feel like it's still too early stage, but people could be preparing for the future as it's evolving quickly?
No, you definitely can start implementing some things now. Some of the biggest things that I would recommend would be making sure you're incorporating FAQ, not just in a designated FAQ page, which is great for SEO, but at the bottom of as many pages as makes sense, because that gives you the opportunity to answer questions that people are asking in AI platforms that are more organic and answer very specifically to your needs, and can also align with how you want to show up and when you want to be seen in those AI answers rather than SEO. SEO is so big on keywords that you kind of have to be strategic about how you write your copy and where you place it in your H1s and things like that. Whereas your FAQs, which the AI bots do absolutely scroll through and crawl, that gives you an opportunity to be more organic and more of a like sneaky strategy where, if someone's searching for a restaurant to go to, the answer for best pizzas around town are going to be a list of places, and you're going to make sure that you talk about the fact that you serve pizza. In your FAQs, you can talk about the quality of ingredients and is this place, even to the point of like, is there a patio? Like, you may not want to put like patio pizza parlor at the top. That's not probably an H1 or H2 thing, but you can answer that in FAQ because that's what people are looking for in more of an organic way through these search engines with AI. So that would be my number one thing, to make sure you're leveraging these FAQs and making sure they're very specific to the pages. If you're on the about page, you're prompting questions that it may ask about the establishment, the business, the service. If you're on the services page, you're asking and answering very specific to the service you're speaking to. So that gives not only the experience of the person that's on your website an opportunity to really like get to know you in a very organic way, but it gives AI an opportunity to get questions answered and pull you up in different ways. So that would be my number one quick fix on your website when it comes to making sure you're optimizing. I think there's some other ways with being strategic with, as Krissy was talking about, making sure you're communicating, again, like if you're searching best pizza near me, you're using the copy on your pages to really explain who it is that you are, what it is that you do. And you can balance this like natural tone with then keywords to try to kind of hit both sides. But I would say the biggest thing would be making sure that FAQs are a big part of your website. So that's number one. Krissy, can you think of anything else?
I would add, just thinking about this perception of like SEO versus AEO, it's not necessarily one against the other. What the things that you do on your website to improve SEO also helps AEO, and the things that you do to help AEO also help SEO. Although again, they're just targeting different things. Like Claire mentioned, SEO, when you're writing your copy and you're designing, you're very strategic about the keywords and key phrases that you're putting in your H1s, your H2s, your meta title and your metadata. Whereas when you do that, and when you're designing and organizing the structure of having these headers called out and then paragraph text and then another header so that you can be really succinct for the people who scan, my hands up, who does not read every word, right? Same thing for beneficial for AEO, because it also wants structure. Again, these are bots reading things. So it also wants to be able to see the hierarchy of things and sort of have it like bulleted out. So it's scanning that. So that is still helpful. So if SEO has been your strategy, don't think like, oh my gosh, this was a waste and now I gotta switch. Like it all works together. But just again, remember the intent. And Claire kind of touched on the pizza. We've used this as an example before. And I think this helps paint a picture really to grasp the difference. So we mentioned before, Google, you're typing into Google, pizza near me. Right. It is matching keywords. And I did this as a test and it was great pizza near me. Google focused on the near me part. And so it was like Domino's 2 minutes away, Papa John's 1 mile away, right? It was really like, you want near you, I'm giving you near you. I typed the same thing into Chat GPT, did not list Domino's or Papa John's. It was like, Antico pizza is the best for its Napoleon style crust and its atmosphere. So that's where Claire's getting at, where it's like your friend making the recommendation. If you say, hey, what's some great pizza near me? Is your friend going to say Domino's because it's literally down the street? No, they're going to say like the really good pizza place that's 15 minutes away. It's near-ish. So it just focuses on a different aspect. It focused on great pizza with the hint of near me, right? Like it's not recommending in another state, but that's just like the difference. And so just like, Claire just talking about the FAQs, it's almost like if you could create more clarity and say the things that you wanted to say that seem weird or awkward in the middle of your webpage copy, that's like the opportunity to do it for someone.
Okay, this is so brilliant for a number of reasons. I'm like already learning so much just in these first few minutes, but I love, Claire, that you're giving us permission to, like Krissy just reiterated, that we can kind of like think about how we would talk friend to friend and put those greater details into FAQ. So anyone listening right now, my number one thing that I would have already jot down for your like to-dos is like, just look through every page in your website and ask yourself, are there further details I could share here with an FAQ section design wise at the bottom of this page that, like Krissy just mentioned, maybe don't make sense in your sales copy, like in the middle of a paragraph for you to like insert this additional detail, but could be a potential thing that like a potential client or even a friend might ask as like a clarifying question that could go in your FAQ. So definitely make that an action item for you guys. But Krissy, the analogy, or not even the analogy, the example, I guess, you gave of how the search focused on different things. This is probably an oversimplification of what you just shared. But to me, what I heard as a non-AI and non-SEO expert is basically Google's kind of like operating from the base of being a database, whereas AI is operating almost like a peer reference or like a peer source. That's kind of what I'm getting from what you're sharing. Is that on par with what you're trying to explain? Okay.
Exactly. Imagine that you go to a networking event and you walk into a room and you're wearing a name tag with maybe your name and your business. That's the SEO layer. And then when you're there, someone is like, oh my gosh, you should talk to Ellen. She's amazing. This is what she does. And then someone else says, oh my gosh, you should talk to Ellen. That's the AEO, right? Like the name tag is the SEO, like very clear. This is like people can see it. They know you're present. Hey, I'm here. But the referral, the like, hey, check them out in this capacity is like someone's actually referring you. That's the AEO layer. So like if you can have both, amazing. But if like SEO is just not there for you, and like a lot of us are in spaces where there are big companies that are monopolizing and you're like, I'm never going to get to page one or even, top on there. You just can't rank for that. There's strategies, of course, for SEO to try and do long tail keywords to like, okay, they're not focusing on this. Maybe I can focus on it. But AEO and really like leaning into this AI new world is like, there's opportunity for you to stand out more than these big companies because you're giving AI that clarity, you're creating authority in your space. And so I think there's just like a lot of opportunity for us. Smaller businesses.
Super encouraging actually, because to your point, yeah, like I can see how a lot of people kind of give up on SEO if they're never going to outrank like you said, a Fortune 500 company with billions to spend to get to, page one. So I love that it evens the playing field and kind of democratizes the referral process, which I think is so cool. You guys have already given some really tactical ways that people can get better found by AI so that they can be recommended. What are some other tactical things? Like if a listener were to say, okay, what are the top 3 things that I could do this week to really help me, get set up for success with AEO, other than doing the FAQs, other than thinking through like my authority, my clarity, etc. Any other tactical items that people should jot down on their to-do list?
Yeah, so we mentioned it before, the creating the business profiles across the board. So making sure that you have, Google business profile. Bing is another one that if you're a Google user, like you don't think about Bing. You're like, who's using Bing? But actually AI tools, a lot of them are pulling from Microsoft tools and Bing. So making sure that your business is listed there is really good. LinkedIn, social media, author profiles, Apple Maps, directories or business directories, kind of going through and saying like, am I listed here, right? Like, because if we don't know you exist, how is it going to recommend you? And then how accurate is the information across the board? Am I saying the same thing every place? Maybe your business has evolved over the years and maybe you're not big on LinkedIn. And so it says something on LinkedIn that was sort of like the 2-year-old version of you. And now you're like, okay, but AI is pulling from that. And if it recognizes, ooh, but she's saying she's doing something different here, or here he says this and here he says that, then that's not going to be good. So just kind of going through that list and making sure wherever you are online, Yelp, all of those things, that your business name, your title, your description, your website link is all consistent across the board. So that's a big one. And then the third, so we've got the FAQs, which is huge. And I love that, like, we have permission to put FAQs on a homepage. Like, it was always like your services page was like the place for FAQs, or like maybe like its own page on your website. But like being able to strategically put specific FAQs on each page is like, okay, great. So we have the creating your business profiles consistent across the board, your FAQs on every page, and then schema, which is code. And so this is going to sound a little bit like, what is that? How do I do that? It's a lot more simple than you might think, and there are tools to help you create it, and you can use AI to help you like navigate, where do I put this and how do I put this on my website. But what schema is, basically it's like the label behind the scenes to tell search engines and AI what the page is about. If you've hired a company to do SEO for you, they may have put this on your pages, and there is a URL, we'll have to put it in the show notes, where you can check to see if you have it on your page. But certainly with AI, you can put schema on your pages, and there's different types of schema. It's code that you literally just put on, and it essentially just tells AI, hey, just to be really clear, if you didn't get it from the copy on my pages, this is what I do, who I am. These are the services I provide. These are the FAQs. Here are the reviews. And so there's FAQ, or there's schema for all of these different things. So your organizational schema is going to go on the homepage. That's going to say what your business is, who you serve, have your description, so that, and again, this is another place where you get to say it how you want. So you might not be able to have that perfect little bio on your homepage, but then in the schema, the code that sits behind, no visitor is going to see that, but the AI readers will. You can say, this is what I do, and this is who I serve, and this is, exactly what you want. You can add those FAQs. So again, it just gives that extra layer. If the bots are scanning the code on your page, it's like, in case you missed it on the front end, here it is again, plain as day. Here's the question, here's the answer. If you have reviews on your website, you can add review schema to the back end of the page, even down to breadcrumb schema.
Wow.
So you should have schema on every one of your website pages that are public facing, that you want AI to be pulling information from. So like you don't need thank you pages, right? Like that's at the back end of someone doing something. You're not going to have those public facing. Or if inside of a funnel you have some special pages that you don't want people, Google to be pulling or AI to be pulling, of course you don't want those listed as public, or you don't need the schema on there. So being able to put those on. And then blogs, there's blog schema. So article and blog. So every blog should have that on there as well. And again, it's just giving AI every opportunity to know what you're about, have it clear and plain as day. Think about it like handing over a resume. Some resumes come in paragraph form and some come with bullets. So the bullets is like schema. Humans can read both fairly well, right? The bullets might actually be easier to read, but a human can read the paragraph and get the gist, or they can read the bullet points and get the gist. AI wants the bullet points, right? And so that's what the schema allows you to do on the back end.
This is blowing my mind. First of all, I didn't even know what schema was. So again, great explanation of a more complex topic. I feel like schema equals stealth mode. Like you said, like these are the things that you can like really pad your here's what I want to be found for to AI without anybody actually seeing what you're saying on the back end. So very stealthy, very ninja move. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening to this and they're like, oh, this sounds really amazing. But like even the idea of watching a tutorial on how to add a schema to every page in my website sounds like torture. It does to me. So thank goodness that there are amazing service providers like yourself and Claire that help people do this. How do you work with clients, by the way, to help implement, you know, all the things we talked about today with AEO and whatnot? What is typically like the right entry point for people to work with you guys if they want to take this seriously and really make sure that they're the business being referred by AI?
Yeah, I mean, reaching out to us, we have some packages, and it sort of depends on, has any of this been implemented before? So again, like I said, there are things that we do for SEO that also benefit for AEO. And so if you've had an SEO expert or had a designer work on your website, there might be things that they have already done, which is great, like adding alt text to images, right? Like regardless of which strategy we're moving towards, we want that on there. But yeah, we have packages where it's like, hey, can you just do this for me? And we're like, yeah, great. We'll create the business profiles, or we'll make sure they're all consistent across the board, or we'll add the schema to your pages. We'll get the FAQs on there, right? Help you come up with them, get them on there. So we can certainly do that for people as well. We just had a past website client. We do some of this for our website clients. So like, you know, we're doing the typical like add the alt text to your images. And sometimes it's just like, hey, I want to add on that layer of making sure you are doing the keyword research for SEO and adding the schema to the pages and some various things, the business profiles and things, right? So they can add that on. But then another piece of it is the blogging, because that's a huge piece. Like, okay, great, you've got your website set up, but now blogging. And blogging is different when your strategy is to get found on AEO versus SEO. So the whole strategy on what content you're creating and how you're writing it is different.
Do you want to just like high level, for, you know, sake of time, give us the understanding of what you mean by that? Like, can you just expand on that a little bit further? I know you can't necessarily give us like the step-by-step of like, this is how you write it for this versus that, but just so we understand.
No, yeah, absolutely. So again, let's think back to SEO, keywords, key phrases. When someone's typing into Google search how to do something, Google's saying like, okay, who's using those keywords and phrases and what blog is going to be the best for them, or video or whatnot. When it comes to AI, again, it's looking for authority. It's looking for clarity on what you do. So blog writing for SEO typically would be like, let's write 20 blogs on different topics in your space, with each one focusing on specific keywords and key phrases, right? So if anyone types that in, hopefully they're sending them this blog. Whereas AEO, again, it's looking for patterns and recognition. So it's not looking for keywords and phrases. So the strategy changes from write 20 blogs in your space on different topics to pick 2 to 3 topics and then write 10 to 20 blogs on each topic, with just sort of a different angle, and kind of how you can think of it as kind of picking your blog topic now instead of what's the keyword and the phrase that I want to rank for. What is the primary question that someone's asking in AI that this blog is going to answer? And then
Gotcha.
answer that question.
In a way, it almost feels way more intuitive to blog for AI than for SEO because to your point, and Claire, I see you nodding your head for this too, but I remember, I mean, I'm what I call a failed blogger. Like I, once upon a time, had a very short-lived fitness blog, but I remember always struggling with this concept of like, okay, what I actually want to talk about or like the question I actually want to answer is this, but it's not optimized for keyword search. So therefore, I would have to pick this like alternate title that wasn't really what I wanted to talk about, but like I needed it for that, you know, the SEO juice. And so I actually feel like this feels much more intuitive, much more direct and straightforward. So I love that approach. And kind of as like an add-on question from earlier that I wanted to clarify for our listeners. You guys have mentioned reviews a couple of times, and I know that that can show up in a number of ways. But Claire, I was interested to know your 2 cents on, you know, how a lot of times, especially in the course creator and coach service provider space, which I know you guys specialize in, people will share like screenshots from like DMs or comments on posts of people, you know, sharing a win or sharing something positive. Do you find that images like that being used on a website is more beneficial to AI or less beneficial to AI in regards to AEO than someone pulling those words and actually like writing them onto their website versus displaying them as an image? Just from a design perspective, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I go back and forth with this because I think there's some power in actually using the real thing that someone said. It feels authentic. You can, you know, people don't think that you're making up these testimonials, right? When they see a real screenshot or a screen grab. But you're right, it can be challenging because alt text that you put behind the image is not meant for full paragraphs in review style, right?
Right.
So where the schema comes into play, where you can actually put within your schema the review itself so that the bot crawlers will find that in the schema. And then the alt text will read review about branding from Ellen's experience. So you're pulling, you know, K+C Creative, branding in the alt text, saying that this is an image of a screenshot of a review. And then the back end is where the schema shows the review so that that can get pulled for AI. And then the image on the front end is the authentic original screenshot. So you're kind of getting the best of all three worlds with that. I struggle because I'm like neurotic about design and I feel like sometimes screen grabs ruin that. But I do think that there's something to be said and there's some credibility in letting it live and just pulling the screen grab because it does speak volumes. So yeah, that is how I would tackle that.
So true. So true. I definitely think that element of social proof really comes across strongest in screen grabs, at least for me as a consumer, but brilliant way to get around that and like you say, get the best of all worlds with what you just shared. A final question before we wrap up today, still along the lines of reviews. Krissy, this one I'll put over to you, but with what other people say about your company. So like we just talked about us displaying reviews on our website, but you mentioned earlier like Yelp or things like Google reviews on your Google business profile, what other people say about you, maybe even like LinkedIn recommendations or like the reviews that people leave on your Facebook page. How are any of those things feeding into AEO? We don't have a lot of control necessarily over what people say about us on platforms, you know, outside of what we like own ourselves. But like, is there anything we should be considering from that perspective to set us up for success with AEO?
Yeah, I think it's similar for SEO and AEO that reviews are great. And the more you can get, the more it's going to help you stand out. Again, AEO is looking for validation that you are an authority and that and then all across the board that people enjoy you. So of course, having way more 5-star reviews with a few sentences about you is going to be great across the board for SEO. That's going to help you keep jumping to the top, because again, they're like, oh, people are liking this company, right? It's that outside validation. My husband always says everything self-proclaimed can't be true, which is like to a degree, okay. But it's like when someone else is saying something great about you, there's so much more weight to that.
Yeah.
Right? Because hopefully they're being authentic. Hopefully they didn't pay you to say that, right?
Yeah.
And so we just trust that more. So that's why it's like we want the testimonials on the website, and we sure as heck want AI to know like we've got testimonials there. We've done this cool thing with one of our clients when we did this upgrade where we built her podcast page, but then on the schema, we were able to say like, hey, she has 450 reviews, like 5-star reviews, and here are some of them. So it's like making it really easy to know, like we're not going to put that on the podcast page.
Right.
But so I just think it adds this element of when other people are saying great things about you, that validates your authority and that you're great at what you do. And so again, it's just gathering data to determine, should we recommend this business? And the more reviews you can get, the better. So in your business growth strategy, being able to get reviews is really good. And putting them just on your website where you get to type it in is one thing. That's like one layer. Anyone can make up anything. Anyone can grab a headshot from anywhere, right? But the Google reviews, it's almost like that deeper trust of like, oh, this company didn't like create all these other profiles and put that in, right? These are real people actually leaving reviews. So it just adds that layer of trust and credibility from the person. And then that layer of like reassuring AI, like, pick me, pick me.
That makes so much sense. Thank you both. I mean, seriously, like I'm blown away by how much we covered in such a short window of time. If you've listened to this episode and you're like, I understand now why it's so important that I jump on this, especially as AI adoption just becomes more and more global and more ubiquitous among people. Like, please make sure you're reaching out to experts like Krissy and Claire. Again, the schema thing, like, I don't know about you, I never want to deal with schema. So if you want someone to do it for you, please reach out to Krissy and Claire. They will be your angels. So anyways, where can people connect with you and reach out if they want to explore options of working with you?
Yeah, first and foremost, our website, KandCCreative.com, of course, is going to be where you can find all the things. Super easy to connect with us, book a call. We are on Instagram, KandC.Creative is kind of where we hang out the most, posting there. But yeah, jump on our email list. That's where we share the really insider tips and behind the scenes of what you should be thinking about with your website that's maybe not top of mind. So we share lots of great tips on copy and design and these extra layers like, oh no, AEO, it's time to shift and evolve and expand. So we've got your back in the email list.
Thank you so much. And Claire, is there anywhere else you wanted to add?
No, I think she covered all of the important ones. We have our own personal, and I have another business Instagram and stuff, but it'll get too overwhelming for y'all. So head over to KandC.Creative on Instagram and you'll find us tagged and connected all over there.
I know, I'd say LinkedIn, but we got hacked recently.
Oh, no.
So we'll get that back. LinkedIn will be a great place because it's like, y'all, we need to be on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh yeah, it's like, what is this doing for our AEO? Now it says we're Claude. Like, what was his name, Claire?
Mine got hacked and Clyde took over my account, and he was working for Apple for the last 25 years and was like a web developer. I'm like, well, still same industry.
Right.
Different name, creating confusion for our AEO strategies.
That is hilarious. I mean, not hilarious that you have to go through it, but hilarious in the sense that I actually don't think I've ever met anybody except for you now, who has had their LinkedIn hacked of all profiles. You know, I know a million people who have gotten their Instagram and Facebook hacked, but LinkedIn, that is a sneaky one. That's an interesting choice. So Clyde, whoever you are, shame on you. And hopefully you guys get your profiles back. But anyways, all the links that we mentioned today, including Krissy and Claire's first appearance on our show, will be below in the show notes. So make sure you go say hi and join their world. You'll be be better for it. You'll learn so much, just like I have. Krissy and Claire, thank you so much again for coming on the show. We'll have to have you back for a three-peat sometime soon. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next episode.